section. And after discussing all these changes to bunny boobies, it got us thinking, what else has been altered over the years? While the changes to Lola were mainly because of societal shifts, most of what we found has changed because of real world events. So this week we wanted to take a top 10 to take into some of the top 10 changes in movies, shows, and video games that were changes due to real live events. Spoiler alert, 9/11 really did a doozy on the entertainment industry. Anyways, I'm kicking it off with number 10, which is American Horror Story Cult. The sixth episode of American Horror Story Cult was reportedly supposed to include a mass shooting scene. However, following the Las Vegas shooting in October 2017, FX decided to heavily edit the scene. The network released a statement. The opening, which was filmed 2 months ago and which portrays the occurrence of gun violence that has sadly become all too common in our country, contains a sequence that viewers might find traumatic. So while not a huge change, it was nice that Fox did include a bit of a trigger warning, at least. What do you guys think about American Horror Story Cult changing up one of their scenes because of mass shooting in Las Vegas? Think that's fair?
Yes, personally.
Yeah.
But on an overall spectrum, that was like one of my least favorite seasons of American Horror Story, because I look at it for what it is, which is supposed to be a horror story, and the fact that they would rely, most of that was built up on the election. And when I watch TV or I get into something like that, it's because I want to disassociate from the real world for a little bit.
Yeah.
So sitting down and watching that and reliving what we were already going through.
Yeah.
At that point, why even edit the scene out? It's just a documentary on America at that point, you know?
I mean, I do think that if there's one place where it's appropriate to have those kind of traumatic things, it would be in a horror context. And I would be on the other side of the spectrum. When I want art to reflect life, and if art is going to reflect, the kind of political circumstance, then I think that's great. But in this circumstance, I do think, like, this isn't a Pokemon episode. This is American Horror Story. I think that this is one that actually might have been something that could have been, it would have been traumatic to some people, but it's also like the whole point of American Horror Story was to talk about cults and relate that to the political social situation that's going on today. And I think that mass shootings are relevant to that. So I think it was an interesting decision on their part, but I do think that it kind of, this may have been the medium where that would have been kind of appropriate. Bronwyn, what do you think? Do you think I'm off there or no?
No, I think that people kind of know what they're getting into when they watch American Horror Story, but I think it's more of like a timing thing that people want that like time to kind of grieve and breathe after situations. So maybe if they were editing it out like next season or something, that could be a little bit more why are you doing this? But I think it was just kind of like that.
Yeah.
Like closeness to an experience, and they don't know who their audience is if they like had anyone that was connected to that. So they understand why they did it.
Yeah, I understand why they did it too. I think that it would have been a place where it might have been able to be okay, but playing it safe, especially when you have an IP like American Horror Story, is probably a good thing in the long run, because you want to be able to maintain that, but it's also American Horror Story, so I don't know. Number 9 on our countdown is also another really interesting one. Semper, what do we got at number 9?
Mr. Robot. USA's network thriller series Mr. Robot was off to a promising start since it was renewed by the strength of the pilot alone. The series went on to win over audiences and earn a 98 on Rotten Tomatoes. However, that's the show's never-ending good fortune couldn't last. On the morning that the season 1 finale was set to air, news reporter Allison Parker and photojournalist Adam Ward were murdered on live television. Plot points of Mr. Robot's season finale bore too strong a similarity to these killings, and as a result, the episode got pulled from the airwaves.
Damn. That, I mean, that makes a lot of sense. Mr. Robot was one of those series that I felt like was, it was very edgy. It was supposed to be a thriller. It was supposed to be something that really, was tense all the time. But maybe they didn't want to be that tense, I guess.
And I remember seeing videos on the internet of that situation unfolding, like someone archived that, and like that was really terrible. So it was probably a good choice on their end to pull that episode, because that could be like directly triggering to like people's families at that point.
Yeah. Especially because you're like witnessing something like that on television, and then
right, that's like mass trauma.
Like
you don't know who
on
sees
television.
It. Yeah.
Yeah. That yeah, that's definitely one that you would understand why you might want to stray away from that. Also, really bears a lot of resemblance to like the plot of the Joker movie, but that's just me. Anyways, number 8 on the countdown is another really interesting one. Braun, what do we have coming in at number 8?
Number 8, George Carlin, complaints and grievances. The late comedian George Carlin was never known for pulling his punches. During some of his legendary stand-up routines, he has said things like how he hopes Mickey Mouse dies, how he's tired of hearing about innocent victims, and how he felt there was too much security at airports. And let's not forget his famous 7 words you can never say on television routine. In a sense, nothing was too sacred to Carlin. That is until the World Trade Center attacks on September 11th, 2001. Before the attack, Carlin had scheduled a stand-up special with HBO, which was originally titled, I Kind of Like It When a Lot of People Die. After the attack, Carlin had a change of heart about the title and wisely changed it to Complaints. I think that was the right call.
I think that was a safe call.
Yeah.
I mean, George Carlin was always someone that, again, as you said before, was known for pulling no punches, was known for, being someone that was supposed to be offensive, the 7 words you can't say on television. And, a lot of them look at him as a very, prominent example for freedom of speech and saying what you believe in. So I can understand probably post why, I don't know. It's hard to still think of, even in a pre 9/11 context, where I kind of like it when a lot of people die, as a good title for a stand-up special. But
yeah, it's like it wasn't a good choice. And then I feel like that is there's a difference between like not like having freedom of speech and just like being a asshole.
Right.
I don't know.
I hate to be that asshole though.
Yeah.
I will disagree on the fact that it's comedy, and it's supposed to. Comedy gets dark sometimes.
It's true.
It gets really, really dark, and it's always been that way. And I feel like there should just be one untouched thing where, like, yeah, okay, social standards, we're not going to make jokes about, like, sexual assault. We're not going to make jokes about, like, kids fucking dying. Stay away, like, have common sense. But at the same time, it's fucking comedy, and comedy gets dark, and if you can't handle dark comedy, stray away from it. Like, even the thing with, like, what's her name? Fucking Kathy Griffin, right?
Right.
Where when
I remember
Trump,
that.
Yeah, where she held up a fucking beheaded fucking head that looked like Trump. She did that. Maybe it was poorly timed. If she made that joke like 10 years ago, people probably wouldn't have fucking blinked twice. The fact that she did it when, I think it was right before presidency or during presidency.
It was right after you got elected, yeah. I remember
that. Maybe not a good choice. However, it didn't garner the same attention when people did the same thing to Obama. Like, they did it because she's a comedian, and they've been coming after comedians for years. Comedy's supposed to be dark. Comedy's supposed to make you uncomfortable sometimes. Comedy's supposed to touch into those things that people are afraid to talk about. People are afraid to joke about. It's a different set of standards. So that's where I'm going to disagree on that and say that, it happens. It happened in 1991. They fucking bombed the World Trade Center. It's not the first time. And people still made jokes about it, Well, people still make jokes about 9/11 now. And it's like, okay, I understand where it could be insensitive. However, it's comedy.
Yeah. I mean, Rick and Morty famously didn't make a joke about 9/11 in that one episode. But I do think that is a point. Comedy is dark, and it should be able to be dark. I think that there is a point though with the 9/11 attacks in this instance that the title beforehand was just a dark title for a comedy show kind of thing. But then after September 11th, it would be something that would look directly related to a specific event that just happened kind of thing. And I think that in that instance, it probably is a good idea to change it. But your overall point of, I think that, comedy should be allowed to be dark. I mean, I agree. I think that you should be allowed to have that. I think, honestly, I think we're not only should it be allowed to be that, but I think it's going to go in that direction more because we're seeing a lot of success from comedians like Bo Burnham. A lot of what he was doing right there, that's a different kind of dark, but like, there's been a lot of people, a lot of my friends included that I know that have been like after watching that show, we're just like, sitting in a corner like contemplating life and like having some really deep thoughts because he talks about some deep shit there.
I think I'm just an asshole then because I think I need that bit of seriousness and to add a bit of like of a comedic aspect to it because it helps me cope with some things, So
yeah.
I don't know.
Plenty of people use humor as a way of coping, and I think that's fair to do so.
I love dark comedy. Like, if you want to fucking joke about it, fucking joke about it. Like, I get it. But I also agree where, that's a good thing that he did decide to rename it. However, it also sparks the question of, did he do it to save face, or did he do it because he actually thought, this is an inappropriate title?
Yeah. And from what we have here, it sounds like he was the one that changed it. But again, we can never really know if that was because he was pressured to behind closed doors or he wanted to do it himself.
Absolutely.
I think that if it was me in that circumstance, and like if I was just going off of the idea that you were saying there of like I want a dark title for a comedy movie like George Carlin has done before, where I hope Mickey Mouse dies, like all of those kind of things. That's one thing. But if it was, again, as I was saying earlier, when you have an event like that and it looks like you're directly commenting on that particular event, then I feel like there's an argument that you could say that that's changing the meaning of what you're saying there because of that event happening, and that may not been your fault. And if it was me, I would have felt like that would have changed the meaning enough to where I wouldn't have wanted to do it. But we could never really know. So.
True, yeah.
Number 7 on the list, though, is another one that, yet again, another change that was made because of what happened on 9/11. The video game Grand Theft Auto 3 was delayed almost a month after its planned September 2001 release to make last-minute changes. The game was originally set in what resembled New York City, and after 9/11, the colors of the game's police cars were changed to blue and white. From blue and white, an NYPD design, to a black and white LAPD design. The mission that referenced terrorists were completely removed, and a flight plan that went near skyscrapers was also altered. When released in October 2001, it went on to becoming one of the best-selling video games of the year. I thought this was a really interesting change, and I think that it was one that, like if you hadn't been told it, you may not have ever even noticed that those changes happened. I do think I vaguely that was well before I was playing games. I must be thinking of a different Grand Theft Auto, but the fact that they kind of put the brakes on this simply because this event happened, I think is pretty interesting. Semper, did you ever get a chance to play any Grand Theft Auto 3 particularly?
I didn't, and I stupidly bought it for my kid. And the moment I realized that you could kick a cat and like stomp it into the ground, I was like, we're not fucking playing this. And
that's not even close to the worst thing you could do in that game.
Yeah, you know what? And I didn't know. I was that like, I've never played video games like that. I was always like playing Resident Evil. So like I stayed on like the horror / fantasy / like adventure type of games. And that was just like real life douchebag simulator. And I was good on it from the moment I saw it. Not a big fan.
Bronwyn, you played some Grand Theft Auto before, right? I know you played at least some GTA 5. Did you ever get to play it back in GTA 3?
No, I didn't. It was one of those games that my older brothers had, and they would just like never let me play it. Never let me like watch them play it. It was forbidden. But I did play the newer version. I think it's like interesting though, because like I feel like a lot of the stuff that we're gonna touch on has similar life experience that affects it, a lot of like the post 9/11 content, and it's like the whole world kind of like collectively decided we're not going to do this. It was like a very,
there was big pivots made there, and I think that looking back at some of them, like it makes sense why a lot of them happened all at once, because again, if you saw everyone kind of shifting at once, I feel like you kind of have to read the room, so number 6 in the countdown is another one from Semper. What we got for number 6 in the countdown?
San Andreas. Warner Brothers had a decision to make about their summer blockbuster starring Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson after a violent earthquake struck the small Asian nation of Nepal. The earthquake, which killed over 9,000 people, hit about 1 month before the movie was finished, before the movie, which was finished, was scheduled for release in theaters. Warner Brothers couldn't go back and do reshoots, so what they did was adjust how they promoted the film. At the end of commercials for the film, the studio added PSAs to provide viewers with information about how they could participate in relief efforts. So,
yeah, this was an interesting one because this is about a movie about an earthquake right after like a big, huge earthquake happened, and I think this is just kind of like a time where you need to learn lessons. Like, don't make movies about natural disasters that could potentially happen, especially with like the whole climate change situation ramping up, and the fact that we can start, people can start cooking eggs outside in the sun in Canada right now, because it's 117 degrees up there. Like, we need to maybe stop making movies about superstorms and giant earthquakes and floodings in Germany and stuff like that, when those things could probably happen the next day, because you're gonna have to figure out what to do with your fucking movie afterwards.
Or like still make them and people see that and then they're like, oh shit, like this thing actually happened, that's a problem.
Yeah, and then you have people that also, just suffered from an earthquake that are like, do they really think that it was just like me trying to hold the building together like Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson in the middle of?
Oh my god!
I don't know. I didn't see San Andreas.
I feel like I'm sure he did that at one point where he like held the earth together. But yeah, I feel like adding like a little disclaimer at the end is sort of like putting a Band-Aid on a bullet wound.
Yeah.
It's not doing much.
Yeah, at that point, I don't think it's like even anything like about it being too graphic or anything else like that. But it's just like a thing of like, I don't think people will have the taste for it. Like, will people want to go see that? Right after kind of that thing. Semper, you got feelings. Come on, tell me what's on your mind.
I'm gonna be the disagreeer again. I love movies like that. I've always loved movies like that. I've always been into big like fucking survival stories like that. Like, honestly, from Castaway to fucking I mean, what is it? Deep Impact with Elijah Wood, which came out in like 1996, 1997. He was like a fucking teenager. One of my favorite movies. It's a great movie. It's about a huge fucking meteor that comes and crashes into the earth. It gets blown up. Shit happens. It's a great tidal waves. Oh my god. Anyway, moral of this story is there's always going to be the type of person like me who like watching that shit.
Yeah.
Like Day After Tomorrow. I love that shit. I will still sit down and watch that and be like, oh my god, what if that happens? Yeah, and like I think
just can't stand those movies all the time. I
love that movie.
It kind of steered me into like I'm going to school for meteorology.
Yeah.
Like, I love science. I love the thought of this actually happening. Like, would it be terrifying? Yeah, but like at the end of the day, fucking science is dope. I love science. What Mother Nature can do is fucking insane. So there's a part of me that's like, damn, that shit can actually happen, and like people are always gonna want to see it. However, I do agree that like maybe putting that PSA at the end is a good idea. Like, hey, by the way, I know this is just a movie, but this shit does happen, and it just happened. So if you want to help, like, here you go, you can help. Because like it's after they've already seen the devastation of what could happen, and then you relate it to something actual, and I think it would actually make people want to help even more.
Yeah. So let me ask you this: would you still feel that way after you like particularly if it had been a particular situation like with San Andreas, you'd just gotten through an earthquake and just survived an earthquake? Would you think you'd still have the same kind of appetite for a movie like San Andreas?
I've been in a tornado and I still love watching Twister.
Well, there you go. Different strokes for different folks.
I honestly think, again, it's just not one of those black and white things, and there's always going to be that gray area. And I feel like there's just as many people who are like, wow, I would never want to fucking watch a movie like that ever again. There's the same amount of people who are like, that counteract that with, like, I still like movies like that. Maybe because, like, scary things can mold you into the person you are. If you have a near-death experience drowning, you're either going to come away hating water, or you're going to come away as like a fucking fish and love the water, you know? I just think about things differently, I think.
No, it's good. Hey, we support a variety of opinions here. That's what we wanted to hear. So, but moving right along in the countdown, number 5 is another interesting one that we've got here. Like George Carlin, Sacha Baron Cohen is another example of a comedian who doesn't pull punches. Who we got for number 5, Brahman?
We have Bruno. Sacha Baron Cohen's film Bruno. In his movies, he just pokes fun at, in no particular order, the country as Kazakhstan, suburban residents who imitate urban culture, dictators, and the United States. Still, with how daring he is with his comedy, he does have some lines that he will not cross. His film Bruno, in which he takes on Hollywood and the idea of celebrity, originally featured a scene during which the eponymous character interviews LaToya Jackson. In the scene, Mexican workers are used as chairs. Sushi is served on the torso of a naked, hairy, overweight man, and no jokes are made at the expense of LaToya's brother, Michael Jackson. However, the King of Pop's death in the early afternoon of the day when Bruno was set to make its Hollywood debut on June 25th, 2009, caused Cohen to have a change of heart about the scene. In an almost unheard of move, Cohen had the scene cut from his film shortly before it premiered, within the span of hours. That's a quick, rare act of compassion from Borat.
That one is really interesting to me because Sacha Baron Cohen, again, like he really does put people on blast if he can. Like, he's made movies off of making fun of people for being racist. I mean, like, that's what he's done. He's a great way of being able to show a mirror at a lot of different areas of society. And in Bruno, you know, a lot of that was addressed towards homophobia in general. And it is interesting to me to hear him kind of revoke this just because of the pop star's death. I think I feel like I'm probably going to end up maybe aligning more with Semper on this one and feeling like this is something that I would have rather seen in there with all the aspects, especially when you look at the totality of Michael Jackson's career and his life. You know, he was a great pop star, but he also did plenty of other things as well. So, like, you know, and to me, that is rare to see Cohen ever take something out, you know?
Yeah, I wonder, like, it makes me think.
Go ahead.
It makes me think that, like, maybe in that interview or something, I don't know, I haven't seen the movie, but maybe, like, what was off camera from that interview is that he, like, genuinely became close to LaToya and, like, did it just out of mere respect from her, like, for her, and, like, not wanting to make her, like, feel bad. So maybe it was more of, like, a personal thing and less of, like, a public thing.
Fair enough. Semper, you got thoughts?
I would have left it in. However, I agree that he probably took it out of respect for her, because obviously, like, he got the chance to work with her. When you work with people on set like that and everything, and you deal with people on set like that, like, you form relationships with them and they become your friends and they become your family. So, like, he did it out of respect, very obviously.
Yeah.
That was my 18th birthday.
Yeah?
Yeah, he died on my 18th birthday.
Wow.
And I don't want to comment farther, but just, like, as a single mom, that should basically tell you my opinion on the respect that I have towards Michael Jackson. I'm not fond of him, so.
Yeah. Fair enough.
It was a great 18th birthday present.
Well, I've hardly ever seen Cohen ever again pull any punches from anybody. This is the same guy that, you know, was blasting Rudy Giuliani for fucking weeks right up until the election and tried to make sure that his movie got out right before the election. And that was great present for the rest of us. Love that movie. Anyways, number 4 on the countdown is, guess what? Another one changed because of 9/11. Goddamn. Disney's 2002 Lilo and Stitch, an entire sequence was reanimated after the attacks on September 11th. Now, a lot of people have actually seen videos of this online, and you can look it up, where the basically what happened was there was an air chase between two alien spaceships as the company tries to save Lilo. But in the original animation, they were flying a 747 through a city, and that crashed into multiple buildings during the scene. And the scene had obviously unsettling reminders of 9/11. And so they changed it to their basically a spaceship being hijacked and crashing into, kind of like the mountains and, some brief cityscapes. But anyways, you can actually find the full original version of it, because it ended up finishing all of it because of they were obviously animating up to it, but it's obviously a very interesting change. I think that one, after being able to see both of them in a kids movie for kids of that time, I feel like this probably is one of the most legitimate ones, because that really could have been re-traumatizing for some of those kids. And watching the stuff, I think that could probably lead to that kind of thing. Semper, you agree this time, or are we on this, or no?
I do agree this time, mainly because it's funny you said it could be really triggering to kids. I was in 5th grade. I live in New Jersey. You could see the Twin Towers from my school. It was the 7th day of school, and we watched planes hit the Twin Towers. We could see it from my school, and we could see the smoke, and we could hear the sirens for hours, and we had to go into lockdown. So the fact that they pulled that from the movie, I think, is a really, really smart move to anyone who lived in the tri-state area when that happened, because that was that shattered us. I get emotional thinking about it, because that actually that shook us to the fucking core, and everyone was panicking and no one could get in touch. It's like when you watch post-apocalyptic movies, or you watch movies where there are nukes or zombies and people pick up the phone and it's just the phone lines are so jammed that you can't get through. It went from being a movie to being real life, where you would pick up the phone and you couldn't get through to anybody. It was just a steady ring of sirens, and you couldn't contact, and it was scary. I remember I was fucking 10. I was 10 years old, and I still remember that clear as day.
Yeah. And this came out in 2002. That's about a year later. I mean, I remember I wasn't anywhere near where you were, and it was still, a traumatizing event for me. Not nearly in the same regard, where we had those kind of things going on, but everyone that grew up around that time, remembers where they were on that day. And I think I do think that would have been something that broke kind of that fourth wall and took you out of that and remembered what was going on. And because that issue at that time was still very much on the forefront, finding out all the information that was going on with that. There were still plenty of unanswered questions at that time when that movie was coming out. And, I think that, like you were saying about American Horror Story Cult, how Lilo and Stitch is absolutely designed to be an escape from reality.
Yes. Yep.
That, there's no doubt about that. Brahman, what do you think about the Lilo and Stitch edit?
Yeah, I agree. I think it was the right move to make. But I do think that it's interesting that even though these things are taken away and that they make the decision to cut certain things from our movie, their movie, you said you've seen the scene. So they do have a way of resurfacing after the fact.
Yeah. All right, moving right along into the countdown. Number 3, Semper, what do we got for number 3?
The Watch. The Watch was a sci-fi comedy starring Vince Vaughn and Ben Stiller. But The Watch originally went by a different title throughout the film's production and all through its early marketing stages. In March of 2012, 20th Century Fox, who's a distributor, referred to the movie as Neighborhood Watch, which was an issue because Trayvon Martin was killed on February 26th of 2012, and the studio felt that it needed to distance its movie from the tragedy itself. So first they pulled the trailer from theaters, which featured Jonah Hill, who's also in the movie. They used his hand to pretend to shoot at teenagers. So the studio played up the sci-fi angle of the horror movie. Meanwhile, the studio replaced the original posters featuring bullet-riddled street signs with one that featured the cast, and finally changed the title of the movie to just The Watch. Of course, none of this succeeded in actually making the movie any better. Trash movie.
Yeah, I haven't heard any good movies about The Watch, or getting any good reviews about The Watch, but like, obviously, like, especially when in the wake of the Trayvon Martin shooting, I can understand this stuff being incredibly distasteful, and like, you know, it would be one thing if it was a serious movie or even a horror movie, right? But this is a comedy movie, and so I think that is a a comedy movie with a predominantly white cast, I believe. Yeah, we got like one person of color on there. Yeah, I think that is pretty. It's gonna come off a pretty poor taste. So I think
absolutely. It's like
that was a safe call.
Someone decided to make a Columbine game for the NES after Columbine happened.
Yeah.
And like they were immediately shut down on that. They were like, absolutely not. We're not doing this. So it's the same situation. They were smart about it, and they were like, this is one of those things where it would just not be good for anybody. Like it would be traumatizing, especially for the family members, because it was such a senseless fucking death. I think they made a really, really good call there. I think they saved a lot of face there. It was still a shit movie. I feel like they wasted a lot of money to produce a really low budget film. Yeah. However, it could have been much worse with the original name and the original marketing strategy on that one.
Yeah. Brahman, you got thoughts on this one?
Oh, I totally agree. I think this was the right call. Yeah,
absolutely. Well, also, we would be remiss if we didn't get towards the top of the countdown and have yet another change because of 9/11. Number 2 on the countdown, Bronwyn, what do we got?
We have Spider-Man. Changes weren't made to Spider-Man so much as how the film was marketed. One of the original trailers, featured the web slinger. Sorry, the original trailer featured the web slinger foiling a bank robbery in which the robbers make a getaway by helicopter. As the copter flies through the city, Spider-Man snares the whirly bird in a giant web hanging between the Twin Towers. This high-octane teaser hit theaters around July 2001, but after the September 11th attacks on the World Trade Center, Sony pulled the trailer from theaters. Not only that, Sony also recalled movie posters that featured the Twin Towers reflected in the web slinger's eyes. So yeah, this is like, I feel like this was the right call to make on this one, because, or maybe not. I don't know. I'd be interested to hear your opinion, because maybe by just like taking away those historic structures, they're like not breathing like life into them, or they're trying to just like forget they existed. So maybe it wasn't the right call.
What do you think, Sepper?
I agree. I think it's a very 50-50 situation. Whereas I think it was smart that they removed the scene of like the fucking helicopter being like ensnared by the web between the Twin Towers. I think that's smart. I think showcasing anything that was aircraft around the Twin Towers at that point in time is insensitive, and I'm glad that they pulled it. However, when it comes to the movie posters of like the reflection of the Twin Towers, I don't see that bothering anybody, and I feel like in the end it's almost like paying homage to the victims of the 9/11 attacks, especially as the movie grows and the years pass. Like, people will look back and see that and remember, and like I don't know, Spider-Man is a hero, and it's about saving the world, and maybe that's something that we need to like.
Right.
It's a good thing to associate it with, you know.
But the other idea of it is just maybe even like if you looked at that poster and you saw it was between the Twin Towers, would you think about Spider-Man or would you think about 9/11? You know, like that is something that I think would be a big question. And I honestly don't know, but I think I would be. I think that there is a. I do agree with the validity of the point of like seeing like some stuff where you could see like the New York skyline and see that still be a part of it, and that kind of, you know, there's also something to be said about like the cultural significance that it had. And the reason that we're talking about it so much is because they were more than just buildings, they were cultural symbols for us. And that's why, you know, Spider-Man had, you know, the that's why those buildings were chosen to have the helicopter ensnared between the buildings, because they were iconic buildings. And you know, I think there that you should find ways that you can still showcase that legacy in that regard. I think that honors the victims, but you know, also, especially if you had stuff that, I mean, this came out in July of they had they had a high octane teal hitting July of 2001. That would have been before the it must have been July 2002, because that would have to be after the September 11th attacks. But anyways, having it that close to it, to me, seems that you would end up pointing away from your movie and towards that tragedy. And I think that was probably the best call there.
The best call on a marketing perspective.
Yeah, for sure. But number one in the countdown has to be multiple Pokemon episodes, just for all the fucking weird ass reasons that they've been banned. So I'm about to go through some crazy banned Pokemon episodes and why they were banned. First off, one of my favorite ones is the only Christmas episode that was ever out of Pokemon was banned from being played in the United States, and actually led to a recoloring of one of the Pokemon that was in there. And that was because of Jinx being in one of the first Christmas episodes. And the original coloring for Jinx actually ended up resembling blackface. And so they said that they took that one off of the air and actually changed Jinx's colors to purple from there on forth. There was another episode of Pokemon that was banned, the Safari Zone episode of Pokemon, which is a really crazy one because this has a whole bunch of continuity errors. You see a lot of the results of this episode. Anyways, Ash goes to the Safari Zone and catches like 50 Tauros, okay? And you see these 50 Tauros appear in later episodes. But the episode was banned because it featured the ranch owner had using a firearm repeatedly in different circumstances and actually pointing a gun at Ash at one point in time, saying, "Do you want a bullet in you, son?" or something like that, like threatening him with it. Anyways, the guy was supposed to represent like this kind of like American rancher kind of thing, and evidently 4Kids didn't like that appearing in their episodes in the United States, so they banned that episode. But the craziest thing is that you still see Ash's Tauros in later episodes, and it creates a big continuity error. But the number one banned episode, I think, in my opinion, well, there's still a bunch more. There was one episode that I talked about earlier, I referenced earlier, where they gave James boobs, and one of the episodes where he had inflatable boobs and he was like fondling them in one of the episodes. They banned that episode. There was an episode where Porygon was featured, and that caused massive amounts of seizures in Japan. That episode is banned. And then yeah, that's a bunch of the rapid fire ones that I have out there. A lot of really fun, interesting ones. But what do you guys feel? I know that Brahman, I know you're a Pokemon fan. I see the Pikachu in the background with you, Semper. What do you think about these banned Pokemon episodes?
I mean, I think the one with who that was supposed to like represent the American rancher. I feel like if anyone knew an American rancher, I worked on a ranch,
right,
in Georgia. So like, to me, it's pretty realistic. I mean, that's probably the most realistic episode of Pokemon I've ever fucking seen to that point. As far as like James having titties, I'm all for it. I think it's funny that like Japan they want to ban that, but when it comes to like being the world's ¡1 manufacturer of step and incest porn, no one bats an eye. I don't know, it's weird to me.
Well, it wasn't banned in Japan. It's banned
here. That's stupid. We over-sexualize everything. Why not? See, this goes right back to the equality in over-sexualization, and like why can't James have boobs? I think he would look really. I don't even remember that episode, probably because it was banned here.
You didn't never see it because it was banned. It was never translated.
I would love to see James with titties, and I'm gonna Google it actually. Pokemon boobs.
We actually featured a clip of it in one of our things on Geeklife. I'll have to send that to you another time. But it's a really funny one. Another one that I think is really interesting is. Yeah, right.
I love that so much.
There's a Pokemon VGC player that has James like wiggling his boobs as like their icon on there because they just think it's like the most like gender revolutionary thing out there. But like, no, give James tits, let him fondle him, do whatever he wants. You know, gender is a social construct. One of the ones that I thought was super interesting is there's an episode that you see actually in the introduction of Pokemon, right? There's this big episode where you see like Tentacruel and he's like crashing through a building with his tentacle. He's like a huge one. And that episode was banned actually a couple of times. It was banned in the US after 9/11 because of a bunch of the destruction of buildings and stuff like that. But it was also banned in Japan after the tsunami, particularly because the plot line of that story is that the Tentacruel are attacking the city because the people had been polluting the ocean and not taking care of the ocean, so the ocean was taking revenge on the people, and so they banned that episode after Hurricane Katrina, and they banned it after the tsunamis in Japan. Which is, again, a really interesting one because you can see a scene from that in the original intro of Pokemon where Tentacruel is swiping through that building. But that episode has been banned, I mean, multiple times in multiple different countries because of its plot line and because of destroying buildings in it. Which is pretty interesting when you think about it.
I can appreciate Pokemon sitting there and making an episode about that because, like, humans are assholes and we're destroying the world. So, like, why not highlight that? And why not highlight it to children? Pokemon is made for children. And I mean, you can be an adult and like it. I still like Pokemon. I play fucking Pokemon Snap all of the time. It's one of my favorite games. I'm so glad they made a remake of it, or a continuation, if you will. However, that's shit you should teach your kids. Like, people are littering. Stop littering. Stop ruining the earth. Like, Mother Nature will always win. Mother Nature will take it back. And, like, yeah, I get it. Good thing that they banned it around certain periods of time, but, like, maybe, like, a temporary ban. Like, don't completely ban it. Like, hurricanes happen. Y'all built in Louisiana. Katrina was a fucking shame. Everyone knows that. But there are, like, infrastructure things that need to happen there that, like, they're not doing on their end either. I don't know. Again, I'm an asshole. I'm chaotic neutral all of the time. So, like, I don't understand.
Yeah.
We've been showcasing shit like that since the 70s and the 80s. Well, maybe we're not going to touch on the 70s. That was a questionable period of time. But since the 80s, like, exactly, Captain Planet, like, that's what really started showcasing that we need to fucking take care of our environment and reduce, reuse, recycle, and all of that shit. Like, why can't we show our kids that nowadays? We were shown it, and we took good care of our fucking shit.
Yeah. No, exactly. No, I'm right there with you. There's been episodes of Pokemon that have banned as late as 2018. There was an episode where Ash dresses up like Passimian, which is a monkey Pokemon that has a black face, which, again, getting into blackface controversy. I feel like at 2018, you should have really had a PR person that stopped that episode in production, but whatever the case may be. Aired in Japan, didn't air in the United States. But yeah, Pokemon is just notorious for pulling episodes when they have weird content in there. I do feel weird about the Tauros episode. Yeah, I mean, my family owns a ranch out there, and that's where all the goddamn guns are. So, like, it's a very natural thing to have
go on
guns around.
And they're like, do you want a fucking bullet in you? And that's how it is. Don't go on people's property.
Right.
I think though with the Pokemon situation, because it's like made in a different culture and then brought to our culture, like we have traumas that they don't share with us. So something that you could air there and that wouldn't be offensive. Not like that one as an example, not really, but like something that we find traumatic, that we have a problem with, they might not share that. So it does have kind of like a filtration process when being brought here. And they just got a little bit too no pulp with that orange juice.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think that there's you got to take some things into consideration. You got to understand your audience. I think that over in Japan, that could have been a caricature of the West, and that could have been funny. But like again, we never seen the episode. You know, there maybe have been much more to it. The only thing that we know is that there was a lot of gun pointing, and Ash got threatened at gunpoint essentially. But like again, like Jinx was a character that always was a character that I was like, how did that get past anybody? Like, why did that not hit any, hey, maybe we shouldn't do this kind of thing. And so I think that's interesting that the Christmas episode, and it's the one Christmas episode of Pokemon. And the other thing about the James Titties episode is that that's the beach episode. That's the anime beach episode. The classic fan service episode for Pokemon is the one that gets pulled because James had boobies. So
and he looks good.
He does. He
looks
wears
so
them well.
good. Like, oh my god.
He wears a two-piece well. I mean, look. Team Rocket was destroying gender norms since 1999. They were fucking revolutionaries. They need to be up there with Madonna and queer culture because, like, they never ever prescribed to gender norms in any of their disguises. So
and who is the one from fucking Powerpuff Girls?
Him.
Thank you. Yes,
yeah.
Him also destroying gender norms. Like
exactly.
And I think we need more of that. I think we need to highlight more of the world's issues because, yes. Look, everyone in chat is basically like, we do actively think about this stuff today. We saw things growing up about the plastic ties that keep fucking bottles and shit together. Cut them so animals don't get their heads stuck in them, or in sea turtles, where. Yeah. Our generation is really making it plastics not as big of a thing. We're switching over to reusable straws. That's cool. We don't want to stop the ball where it's rolling, and don't stop it at our generation. We want to teach the next generation to continue our work to live in a better fucking world. This is the only fucking planet that we can colonize right now. The only one. We are fucked if we fuck it up.
Yep. Absolutely. And, despite what Elon Musk says, he's not bringing you guys with him. So just letting you guys know, he ain't come back for you once he leaves. So anyways, honorable mentions: The Good Son, Gangster Squad, Phone Booth, Supergirl, NIS, Los Angeles Legends. They all had really cool, significant changes. They didn't make the list here, but I would definitely, if you get a chance, go check out all of those. There's some fun ones in there, and that will do it, guys. That'll wrap it up for this episode of Geek Life. We hope you guys have enjoyed everything today, and remember, if you want more of Geek Life, you can always follow either of us on Twitter, Twitch. We've got YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, Spotify. Links are all down below in the bio. Take donations, everything, all of the above. And if you want even more content, you can find me at Rusebane, WRUSE_BANE on Twitch, Twitter, and TikTok. Semper, where can they find you?
Semper Zombie on everything, mainly on twitch.tv/Semper Zombie. Twitter is Zombie Semper. Yeah, reach out if you like the content. If you don't, that's cool too. And wish you the best of luck in life.
And Brahma, where can they find you?
You can find me at Space Nymph on Twitch and also on Instagram.
Yep. Big shout out to our moderator, Littlest Nelly, our video producer, the ever capered Doodle. Thank you, the Doodler. And thank you, Littlest Nelly, for the 100 bits and cheers. We appreciate that. The 4 community subs as well. Stina Joy, thank you as well for the follow. We appreciate all of that. We appreciate everybody hanging out here in chat. We got Savage. We've got Gonzo gone live. Urchin, thank you guys so much. Contributing a lot of interesting conversation here. Yeah, everybody's going crazy over a lot of those banned Pokemon episodes. You know, it was the first episode that you saw Tentacruel, all those things. People going crazy over Big Booby James, all that. You know, we love all the love in chat. Thank you guys so much. You can find us not here next week, I don't think, but we will be on the week after that. There will be always free game Fridays, Saturdays, and more fun stuff to come. So stick around. But that's all I've got. You guys got anything else, or no?
I'm done.
All right. See you guys later. Peace. Thanks for coming. Bye.